Yeah, hey everyone. So as we talked about yesterday, we kind of covered at a high level, just kind of what SSH was, why we needed it, and whatnot. Because typically, if you're used to Windows, you RDP into instances. So SSH is a little bit different, which is why I wanted to cover it today. So at a high level, we'll kind of talk about what it is, how it works, and we'll go over two samples of SSH clients. So one directly through the command line, which is to my right, and two right from PuTTY. So PuTTY is a popular SSH client. We'll talk about that. We'll also talk about alternatives if you want a better UI, UX experience kind of thing. So with that said, basically how SSH works, like we talked about previously, it's that secure shell network protocol. So it allows some sort of client to control a remote system on a network. So how that works is basically the client is going to provide the remote host information. So who I want to connect to. We'll talk about specifics in a sec. And basically the server typically will have something called an SSH daemon running. So daemon, if you're not familiar with that terminology, just think of it as a Linux background process that performs some sort of task or operation under some sort of event or condition. So it's listening in the background, and then once it gets some sort of client connection, it's going to authenticate, assuming successful authentication authorization. Then great, it's kind of good to go and it'll allow you access. If not, it'll print an error. So for SSH, typically you need your username, your DNS, so your private or public, depending on how you're connecting, IP address of the server, and either a private key if you're using some sort of key authentication, or a password if you're using password-based authentication. So as you can see here, PuTTY is a sample SSH client. So if I just go to the SSH instance I was connecting to, as you can see here, Ubuntu at, so that's my user, at the public IPv4 over port 22 because I allowed port 22. As I said before, if I go to SSH auth, here's my private key file. So specifically, PuTTY doesn't support the .pem syntax, which is typically how you get private keys. So PuTTY has a converter called PuTTYGen that you can just convert the PEM to a .ppk file, which is what you see here. So if I open this connection, it opened on another screen. Just give me 1 second. As you can see, it used the username, it validated the public key with the private I sent, and then from there, I was authenticated. But like I said before too, you don't always have to pass the username. The username can be prompted, and the reason I want to show that here is because if you're using password authentication, you'll get the same sort of challenge. So if I load this, which is pretty powerful, you can load and save sessions and name them something else. If I just try to go to the server that I have access to, if I try to open it, you want to log in as, so you can choose any user on the server that has proper access. So if I want to go Ubuntu, great, we're back in again, kind of thing. So as you can see, it's not the prettiest looking terminal. So I've heard pretty good things about a couple more open source SSH clients. So for example, Hyper, Xshell is another one. Chrome is a pretty nice extension for SSH. So basically what it's doing under the hood, which is why I wanted to show here, is it's running a command. So SSH, you can Google the SSH command, so -I, and then being that I'm using a private key, I need the path to that private key. So my path, I'm going to print here. I'm using the .pem file like I talked about, just being that specifically PuTTY doesn't support um, that .pem format. So it's called tech topic.pem. Um, then from there, I need my user. So my user for this is Ubuntu, just because it came with the server, at, and then the public DNS name. So I can just once again get that from either my instance or PuTTY. So I'm just getting it from PuTTY now. And now we're in through the terminal. So basically you can run any Linux commands right from your command line, which is pretty cool. So we're good to go on that. And this ends today's topic. Thank you again, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.